the way you talk as a guy. I've recently realised is almost as important as the way you look, and and your things like your posture and your size, your strength, things like that. I've realised that talking is almost as important. Being able to talk well, and the quality of your voice as well. So I'm going to go through a few elements in this and how I think you can improve on any one of them. So I guess the most obvious one for people is having a deep voice. I think that's actually huge. But it's funny because, see, my resting voice, if you listen to me on podcasts or even on these videos, I sound very deep. Like, I've got a very deep voice, but it's not very loud. And, I'm actually talking fairly quietly at the moment, but if I raise my voice, I very quickly, it goes into a much higher register that isn't very attractive. Isn't very, it makes me sound, people will take you less seriously if you talk in that kind of register. So, as opposed to down here. So, if I'm on a podcast or if I'm doing a video, it's great. But in actual day-to-day life, I find I don't really have a deep voice as such. Because the actual strength of my voice hasn't been developed. So, the thing to do for that is just practice talking louder and deeper. And it really is that simple. It's just a muscle that needs to be developed, really. So, yeah, there's not really a lot to say about it. It's just, it's just a case of exercising your voice enough that it starts getting deeper. And then there are other things though that I think are almost as important. So, if you think about people like, I think a good example is, you think about someone like Jordan Peterson, has a very, not a deep voice at all, but the manner in which he speaks is so precise and so articulate that it doesn't really need to be deep to command authority. And similarly, if you take someone like Mike Tyson, although he's a very formidable person, if you just listen to his actual voice, and the sort of things he says, he's not actually terribly articulate, and he doesn't speak so clearly, and he doesn't have, he'll and more, and so it's weird. His actual voice, the way he speaks, is not very formidable. Now he makes up for it in other areas, but I think it illustrates the point quite well. And he's got quite a deep voice, even though he's got quite a deep voice compared to, he's got a really sort of, the actual quality of his voice is very gristly, very sort of aggressive. But the actual things the way he says, the way he talks. Sorry, I should have distinguished that. The way he talks is actually not very aggressive at all, or very articulate. So the takeaway from that is to learn how to speak well, and it's something that Jordan Peterson says quite a lot. But it's actually quite a difficult thing to speak really well. And by speaking well, I don't necessarily mean talking in a very descriptive way. Like, I could say, oh, this tree is just absolutely with the light hitting the tree. I'm not talking about like poetic language, but more articulate. Really, it's just about being articulate over being descriptive. Using beautiful words and stuff like that. So the reason why it's so attractive is because it implies that you have your thoughts clearly set out. And then the other thing is getting rid of things like umming and erring, which is incredibly difficult. And it's taken me a long while to a bit of practice to stop umming and erring. I mean, I still do it quite a lot in these videos. I've done it a few times in this very video, and even saying things like repeating words, like I did it just then where I said to do this. I mean, you can do it a bit, but you don't really need to do it at all. You can just cut that out completely. And you sound a lot more authoritative. So, yeah, that's my observations about it. I think the two sides on their own are often talked about, having a deep voice and speaking articulately, but the two aren't never really married together. I don't think. And the other thing is, I forgot what it was. Oh yeah, speaking slowly as well. There are times when you need to speak quickly, maybe to it's a busy conversation and you want to just get your points in really quickly, so you're speaking really fast, and that's it's impressive in its own right, I guess. In more casual conversation, maybe if you're using more slang, you're sort of along the continuum of slang to just received pronunciation. You're more using a more regional accent because you're around in an informal setting. Like you might words naturally slow into each other more. Like I don't really have an Essex accent at all, but I'll sometimes say, if I'm speaking in a more formal setting, I might sort of slur the L into a W, so like formal, or I'll miss out the T, like little. Well, actually, I don't really do that, but someone with an Essex accent would, they'd say lil, like that, or you do that in some American English dialects as well, like. So little would just be lil, and you just kind of, it's a little thing, so what I'm getting at is when you're in that kind of informal setting, that's words just slow into each other much more. That's fine, but you want to be able to speak. What people do is they speak in this kind of way, and then they'll never learn how to speak really clearly and slowly. So you want to be able to know when to cut out sort of more informal parts of speech that take away from the gravity of what you're saying. When you need to. I'm not saying like if you've got a northern accent, then don't have a northern accent. I'm not saying that, but like still speak in your own accent, but just beware of just slurring words together, I guess. So, and that's it. And then you'll be amazed by how different it is to your life is when you can talk clearly, and that means you can think clearly. A lot of these videos really are just my own practice of thinking, as a way of thinking things through clearly in my own head. So yeah, it has great benefits.